Alright students, I'm going to show you what we need to do in Adobe Premiere to go ahead and create your bouncing ball animation final video project. Okay, so I've launched Adobe Premiere. I'm going to click on the new project button, left click on that. Alright, we're going to call it Bouncing Ball Final. Okay, so I need to know what it is. You need to set your location of where everything's saving to. I'm going to click the Browse button. I'll click on that. I want to set it to my folder called Bouncing Ball. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to choose that. Everything else you can leave the same and I'm going to hit OK. Alright, I went ahead and launched Adobe Premiere and we talked about these are the modules at the top. I'm going to expand this out here. Okay, currently I'm in assembly because I want to go ahead and add some clips. So I'm going to hit Control I and then I'm going to go to my bouncing ball folder and I have one of my animations here. I'm going to click Import. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control I again and then I'm going to do my dribbling ball. I'm going to import that. Hit Control I again. And I am going to grab, I'm just going to grab those two. Let's go ahead and work with those two. Okay. Alright, so these are my two video clips. And like before I said, you can add a bin, which is just a folder. And if I left click on that, we're going to call that audio to set us up for when we look for audio files. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to editing. We're going to go to editing module. This is where my clips are. All I have to do is left click, hold, and drag it into this panel right here. Next to it, this is my timeline. Like I said before, if you double click on the clip right here, you can preview it in this window. And I'm going to stop that. And then when I double click on this one, it's going to switch and I can play, and there's my dribbling ball. Okay, so now here in this panel, you're going to see that this is your sequence. If I left click once, I can type in, I want to add that it's I want to type in sequence so I don't get confused, because it's going to duplicate the name of whatever clip you dragged into this timeline first. This is my little playhead. I can scrub back and forth. I am going to go ahead and put this at the end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on that clip and I'm going to hit Control C to copy, Control V. And so I've pasted it 3 times. I'm not so worried about the audio. I can left click and hit delete. If the two are what they call linked together, if these are both highlighted, you can unlink them. If I right click, there is an unlink option, okay? That's only if for some reason when you click on both of them and they both highlight and it makes you delete both of them. But these are not linked together and I can just hit my delete key. There is those 3 clips right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the playhead at the end and I'm on this video layer, and then I'm going to grab my dribbling ball. I'm going to grab it and left click and release. I don't need this audio. There's nothing there. And like I said before, if when you click on the video, both of these, the audio and the video, are highlighted, you need to right click and go to unlink. Okay, which is not the case for me, so I'm going to just left click on that and hit the delete key. So now I'm going to do the same thing, put my playhead at the end. I am going to left click on it, hit Control C and Control V. Did that 3 times. Okay, so now you get the idea that I've got my dribbling ball. You would want to go ahead and import the video clip of your own animation that you created and import it here, and then left click and drag it over here. So I'm just going to work with the clips I have right now. Alright, so the next thing we want to talk about is we want to add a title. Okay, so up here in the top of the modules, you want to left click on graphics. The panels will change right here. You have your timeline, but then over here, this is the essential graphics. Okay, so what you're seeing is happening, you're going to see a yellow T in a lot of yours because the font is missing. I've tried installing it, it's not working. I'm not sure why. So up here in the search, right here, there's a magnifying glass. Left click on that, and we're going to type in basic. When you type in basic, you will get there are just 2 that are not missing the fonts. And later on you can animate these. But if I left click on my title here, you're going to have your basic and you're going to have your lowered thirds. This is actually going to need to be pulled into your timeline. So I want my playhead. So if it's over here, my playhead, I can bump it, use this go to in. It goes to the beginning. I'm going to left click and drag my graphic for my title. And then it shows up right here. Okay, obviously this is too much. So I need to left click at the end and you're going to get this red bar with an arrow and I can drag it in. You're not cutting the clip. You are actually literally just shortening it. So I think I'm good here. I'll try that. I can use my selection tool and select it, left click on it, and I can move the title so maybe I can read it a little bit clearer. If your title still looks like you can't read it, you may need to use the type tool, double left click, or you can left click and drag, and then you can go to the fill right here under your essential graphics, double click that, and I could make it a completely different color and I could hit OK. It's going to automatically update. So I'm going to call it My Bouncing Ball by Miss Miller. So you want to include your name. If I want to make this a smaller typeface, there's a slider bar right here. I can adjust the scale of it. I can also change the actual typeface. So if I click on this here, and take some time because I have a lot of fonts installed on my computer, I can go in and I can just change it to a different typeface, and then I can go ahead and move my slider bar until I can see that right here. You can also zoom in, like you can increase the magnification right here, so I could do 50, but a lot of times I do 25 just because sometimes things are going off the edge. Okay, so I'm going to adjust this and place it here, and then I'm going to play this just to see that it is on screen long enough. So I'm going to hit the play. Yeah, I can deal with that. That's good. That's enough time that I can read that. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is we are going to add some transitions. Okay, so under Effects panel, actually Effects module, you left click on that. This is going to all update again. Ignore this for now. I'll probably cover that later on. But here under the effects, you can search some basic effects. We're going to look for dissolve. So there's something called a cross dissolve, and I can grab this effect and I have to left click and hold, and then I'm going to drag it to my timeline. See how it highlights on the actual clip? I'm going to drag it on top. It says it didn't have enough frames. That's okay. So there's my effect. When I left click on the effect, here it is right here. It's saying this is the duration. So I want to left click and I want to actually make it less. So you can actually left click on that and the numbers will go higher or it will go lower. So I'm gonna make it less. There we go. So I made, just by clicking and dragging, left click, hold and drag on the numbers, it changes to whatever amount I want. So now when I play this, it kind of fades out. Okay, the next one, I'm going to move the playhead up here. There are other types of dissolves. You are always welcome to try any of these. So there's a film dissolve. I would do the same thing, left click, drag it on here. It's probably going to say it's too much. So this is where I need to left click on the actual effect. I will come over here in the duration and the effects control, and I'm going to reduce that number by left clicking, and I just maybe a few seconds long. There we go. I've never tried the film dissolve. Okay, it's a little bit more gradual. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit play. See, and then I get some dissolves. So each of these areas I kind of want to dissolve. Now these are shorter. When you run into this and it's shorter like this, we are going to bring up the slider bar. I'm left clicking and holding. And see how you can get a preview of the actual clip here? So what I can do is I have a keyframe timeline. It is this line right here. And you can do more controlled like transitions between each of the footage, and you will use this little pen tool. If I left click on that, I'm going to left click 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And so I'm going to fade out this clip here. I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to left click, drag down the dot right here all the way to the bottom where I can't go any further, because that is like it's going to black. I'm going to take this one and gradually bring it down, left click and hold. See, now you get the transition right here. The nice thing about when you do something controlled like this, you can stack clips on top of each other. And actually I can move this clip up here. Then I can bring this one down here, and it's just like your layers in Photoshop. See, I can see the next clip come through. So if you want something more controlled, and you know you have very short clips like this, there's not a lot of frames, you might not be able to do a transition. So you have to play around with it. So then I can go right here, move those right here, and then I gradually fade in, fade out, fade out, fade in. Okay, but I want you to have some transitions between each of these clips. I'm going to left click, drag it on there, left click, drag it on here. It says it's not enough, so I'm going to left click on that. And then once again, I am going to drag the duration down so I can actually see. And actually, if I don't want it, I can click on it, left click, and delete. So anything is really easy to change. And actually on the dribbling ball one, I don't really need it because it's basically a loop. So go back to the beginning. I'm going to click on the go to from the beginning. I can hit play. And I've got my video all together. Now I do like to have a fade out in the end, and this is where you're going to need to use the keyframing. So I'm going to use my pen tool, 1, 2, 3, and then I can use my selection tool, left click, bring that down. And you may need to repeat this more than just the 3 times. So I have my beginning point, middle, and then end. Okay, so you're just keyframing. You're telling Premiere this is the beginning, middle, and end. Okay, so I'm going to drag this over, and with the dribbling ball, I think we're going to have to bring my playhead over here. I'm going to control, I've got this left click on it, and I'm going to hit Control C, Control V, and it pasted at that. There we go. It's probably going to need 4 of those. So if I hit the space bar, it should stop and play. And then it fades out. So it looks a lot better. I'm going to bring this back to the go to button and set the beginning. And then that's what I'm covering for today. All right.